Glendalough is home to an early Christian monastic site set in a steep-sided valley in County Wicklow, Ireland. Koyo-san is one of the oldest monasteries in Japan and home of Shingon esoteric Buddhism, sharing some practices of Shintoism through appreciation of nature. In this presentation, I will seek to understand the cultural and natural elements that help evoke a unique sense of place at both these UNESCO World Heritage Sites. In comparing these landscapes, I will evaluate Glendalough's cultural resilience and consider landscape practice approaches that I might take in helping to ensure Glendalough's continuing relevance. There are two key questions I would like to address regarding these landscapes. Why did they become important sites, and why are people still drawn to them today? The first question is partly one of historical context, and the second question speaks more to a phenomenological exploration of the sites, and will therefore require a more subjective response. St. Kevin of Glendalough is said to have stayed still for so long that a blackbird made a nest in his palm and laid an egg. This intense connection to nature from the 6th century continues to resonate today as increasingly urbanised populations seek their own biophilic experiences. In landscape architecture, we consider biophilia as an essential consideration when assessing the quality of a landscape. Our preferences for certain qualities are often led by the inherent ecology of the place, and we recognise a restorative quality in certain types of landscapes. The Japanese act of forest bathing carried out at Koyo-san reflects this need. The two locations have many similarities regarding cultural and natural context, and both receive over 1 million visitors a year. I would argue that their success stems from their having established a fine balance between culture and nature. Looking to TripAdvisor for a broad consensus on how each environment is perceived by visitors is non-scientific but nonetheless revealing. Typical descriptors for Glendalough include atmospheric, peaceful, serene, mystical, enchanting and breathtaking. For Koyo-san, they include tranquil, serenity, spiritual, mysterious, haunting, otherworldly, peaceful. The two views I'm looking at for this exercise both demonstrate most of the qualities from Kaplan and Kaplan's preference attributes matrix and from their attention restoration theory. Take this view at Glendalough. What draws us to it? The complexity of changing scenery and textures, varied terrain and winding paths that add mystery. A distinct foreground of two rivers in a confluence provides soft fascination, mystery and complexity. A middle ground of open meadow and gentle slopes trigger a yearning that comes from wanting to be immersed in a distant sunlit meadow. Ancient buildings that we can relate to on a human level indicate our compatibility with the landscape, a sense of belonging. The distant hillside conveys a sense of being nestled, as one visitor described. Nestled, but with a legible view that provides us with a context for where we are, and therefore a level of reassurance. This path in Koyo-san, leading to the mausoleum, is far more enclosed, but still offers a vast array of attributes that appeal to us. Repetitive elements, such as the vertical pattern and scale of the cedar forest, add mystery and complexity. There is coherence in the path that winds through the woods. The sense of being away and of mystery from the enclosed space created by the mass of forest either side of the pathway and in the canopy. The legibility and compatibility brought about by the regularly spaced stone lanterns guiding visitors at night. On a phenomenological level, therefore, both sites provide us with remarkably rich experiences and help form a strong sense of place. Other geographical similarities between the sites include Northern Hemisphere oceanic islands, temperate climate, high levels of rainfall, high altitudes, and so on. Both have a stillness that is partly determined by the sites being sheltered from prevailing winds. Both make use of the vernacular materials in their building, granite and wood. Both sites have origins that predate Christianity and Buddhism, and there is a noticeable blending of paganistic nature worship in St. Kevin and a seamless interweaving of Shintoism with Buddhism at Koyo-san. Glendalough was founded in 6th century by St. Kevin and Koyo-san by Buddhist monk Kukai in the 9th century. The two men inspired followers, and the sites became large monastic settlements with religious teaching and reverence of nature at their heart. Two cultural constants at both sites include a consistent and continuous flow of pilgrims along ancient pilgrim routes and continuous use of the burial grounds. Both share violent political and religious upheaval in and around the 15th and 16th centuries. Sites were burned and attacked repeatedly, but only Khorasan remains intact today as a successful and fully functioning monastic settlement. In this respect, Glendalought's religious cultural resilience has waned significantly, although its ecological significance has increased in recent decades. Khorasan has an ongoing global reach in sharing its Buddhist message to tourists and pilgrims. Because of this continued cultural relevance, it is perhaps fair to say that culture here plays a more significant role than nature, even though the two are intertwined at each site. I chose the oldest areas for this study, Glendalough Monastic City and Garan Temple Complex, and these are each connected by a 2-kilometre woodland walk that leads to more secluded areas of landscape where both monks practiced asceticism. St. Kevin lived as a hermit, and Kukai requested he be walled up in a chamber at the end of his life and is said to be in a perpetual state of meditation. The sites share similar lines of pilgrimage to the monastic centres of learning. These then lead to wooded walks that culminate at Glendalough in an expansive, breathtaking view across a glacial lake. At Khorasan, the opposite, a contained and enclosed space deep within the forest. Anecdotally, both these distinct final destinations stimulate a sense of mystery, wonder, tranquility, and awe. This may be attributed to the distinct shape of the landscape themselves and their perceived connection to spiritual harmony. For Buddhists, the lotus is a symbol of purity. Khorasan was deliberately situated at the heart of a symbolic lotus and therefore the centre for ultimate enlightenment, and is surrounded by 8 mountain peaks representing the flower's petals. Glendalough Valley, on the other hand, has a spellbinding beauty in its clearly defined glacial valley symmetry. This vertical symmetry symbolises harmony in many cultures. The valley draws our eye to the vertical line that defines this symmetry, as well as the horizontal line of the lake. The vertical line connecting us to the divine and the horizontal to the earth is a symbolic relationship that man has had to the landscape for millennia, in our yearning for connection with the infinite and eternal. Its vertical dimension is an axis mundi, which acts like a centre pole, uniting heaven, earth, and the underworld. Lakes are watery nether regions located just below the surface of the land. The topography of Glendalough is relayed in more detail in my cross-sections. A to B, the nestled site of the monastic city, comfortable in its gentle surroundings, and C to D, the head of the glacial valley, steep-sided, narrower, distinctly symmetrical, and consequently somewhat otherworldly. In ensuring its future cultural and ecological resilience, there are a number of interventions that could be considered for Glendalough, drawing on the success of Khorasan and a contemporary example, the Centre for Alternative Technology in Powys, Wales. This has a similar landscape of steep-sided wooded valleys, temperate climate and similar ecology. Vernacular use of slate, wood and cob wall building is central to the architectural practice here. It specialises in environmental education and students live within the site. Like the monasteries in their heyday, it is self-sufficient for food, energy and water. It encourages focused learning within a natural setting, something we may associate with a modern-day retreat. Glendalough and Khorasan have a strong history of religious education with an emphasis on biophilia, and so a key intervention I would propose includes a school of ecology and forest school. These changes will improve accessibility for a more diverse range of groups, especially those who cannot easily access green spaces. The park and ride scheme and improved access to pilgrim routes and walks will ease congestion at the site and reduce the need for parking at the upper lake. Restoring some of this car park to its natural state will improve the feel of the area significantly. Encouraging more people to take the pilgrimage routes to ease up on vehicle pressure at the site will also have an impact, as will inclusive design for some of the harder to reach archaeological sites in the form of VR and AR experiences, as well as priority parking for those with mobility issues. Active learning and research in the form of living archaeology through carpentry, illuminated manuscripts and growing traditional produce for selling in the on-site cafe. This is something actively done at Khorasan, where visitors can see the inner workings of monastic life. They can also take part practices such as meditation, listening to sutra teachings, and a calligraphic sutra copying practice. My interventions are based on ecological education, inclusivity, access, ecological restoration and diversified tourism for the local economy, which can enhance the core success story at Glendalough, its unbroken tradition of pilgrimage against this beautiful natural backdrop for well over 1,000 years. The final mention must go to the sika deer, a native of Japan, often seen in the quieter fringes of Koyasan, but also now at Glendalough. Introduced to Ireland in the 1800s by a wealthy landowner, it escaped and bred with the native red deer, and is now a common sight throughout the valley. What is true for both Koyasan and Glendalough is the delicate interweaving of culture and nature, often intentional, but sometimes accidental.